Hi, I'm Chris from Airwindows, and hey, you can do this alteration in something that I have done. Check this out. So, we've been listening to that for a while, but what if it did this? Because this is Airwindows LilAmp. So what we had here is an alteration between these two things. This is FireAmp. That is the sort of high gain one with a bunch of distortion in it, but you don't necessarily always want that. In particular, sometimes you can get a lot of impact out of a guitar amp style sound that is a lot less distorted than that. So let's take a moment and let's look at just that rhythm guitar. If we replace it with LilAmp, that's now a lot crunchier. And you compare that with, oh, sorry, I had FireAmp and LilAmp on at the same time. I don't know, maybe you want to hear that again. FireAmp, LilAmp, both. So this is the one that we had before, and here is our new rhythm guitar sound without nearly as much distortion. And we've got our gain. As you can see, there's not that much gain on tap. And we have a tone control. So we can get a sort of softer rolled off tone. Or something with a little bit of kind of mid-range grunt to it. We have a certain chunkiness to it. All the way to a more bright kind of sound. You get some of the mids back. Get a little more low-end beef there. And we can hit more in the sort of high end with a brighter tone. So what happens when we have a sound like this is it's kind of sitting inside the track. Here, let's hear what that sounds like with LilAmp on the lead. It does give us a different tone on that. And the way we deal with this kind of thing is by deciding what aspects of the song we want to be more saturated and full, and what aspects of the song we would want to be more percussive and punchy. Because one of the key things in doing like an amp or whatever, and just for jollies, let's take half a moment and listen to what LilAmp sounds like on the drums. So what we're going to do is, I believe it's control drag unless that deletes it. Hang on a second. Nope, it was indeed control drag. I'm going to plunk it in the middle there, bypass it, and then ow. So there we have the drums going through LilAmp. Now, LilAmp is a very little amp. Enough of that madness. I might get into madness like that with some other kind of track. For now, I think it's time to give you folks a little amp, and you can do things like that yourself if you would like. So LilAmp is a audio unit and VST2 plugin. It is available for Mac and Windows and Intel Linux and Raspberry Pi Linux, or at least the new Raspberry Pi 4. Like the Pi 400 that I've got, it's designed and built on that. It's a little amp simulator of the kind that will act like, hopefully, a tube, little tiny amplifier. It's not going to have any bass or anything there. And it is hopefully going to find a use for you. One of the interesting things about it is the way that that tone works. Is it's not exactly like a simulation of a real amplifier. Instead, it's doing some of the same things that a real amplifier can do, but you could tell immediately when I started playing with it that stuff can get a little off the hook. And that's half the fun. So I do have more amp simulator things coming. I've also got a bunch of stuff in the works of various kinds. One of them is what's going on back here. You probably couldn't hear that. I am looking to get back into music making in such a way that I'm building stuff entirely with the synthesizers and things that I used to do a bunch of live streaming on. And one thing that you might see back there is the Mackie that the Mackie and MackieQ plugins came from. See, what I'm going to try to do is make music using that full on, like not holding back. Generally, I find that the stuff that I make, I'm more inspired when I'm working with like analog gear and so on. That's what inspires all the plugin things. And my idea is I'm going to do that full on as much as I can. And I got a Bandcamp going, so I'm going to be putting it out on that. You'll probably hear things like that in the plugin videos as well. And then I'm going to see whether I can't do a console version based on what I was able to get out of the real hardware Tiny Mackie. It's a Tiny Mackie 1202. Mind you, if I can make that work, and I can do in the box, which will be fairly, basically I'll just push the Tiny Mackie as hard as I possibly can and get hopefully a really big techno house sound out of it. And then I will make a point of capturing individual tracks and trying to reassemble what I did with the real thing in the box. If I can do that, I can put out a version of console, which is probably going to be the first lettered version of console, because the lettered versions are the ones that I have in mind for simulating actual hardware consoles. It probably won't be M because I'm reserving M for the Mackie 8 bus, but and I don't have one of those yet. But that's kind of the plan. As you know, I have big plans all the time, and that is the current one. And in the middle of doing all of this, I'm going back up to Canada. So you will be seeing me in the other location, and that will force me to work in the box entirely and exclusively. So I got to do as much as I can while I'm here before hitting the road, because I do my work here, I get paid here, but I'm spending time with my significant other in Canada, and we got a lot of stuff to do there. One of the things I'm going to try to get done, and possibly in upcoming weeks you'll see more of this, besides just things like the amp sims that I'm continuing to put out, is also I want to start doing a sound library. I've begun doing this, and people who are following Airwindows know that I've put out like drum samples and things, and for a while there I put out some drum samples and things for Bespoke, and that's, I forget exactly where you download that from. The idea is I would like to put that out as like the Airwindows Sound Public Library, and that will be much like the plugins. That stuff will be about as free as you can get, to the point where you can rebuild it and sell your versions of it as long as you credit. I think that's Creative Commons 0 or something like that. Folks in like Unfuzz community know all about that stuff, so I'll ask them what I should do. And that will come in handy, because one of the things that you heard on this little track you've been hearing is a bass that is basically ready to go by my standards, because I have a bass instrument that can be used. It is the Rickenbacker, and you use it with Golem, because one pickup is one channel and one pickup is the other channel. But I have it as about 6 different renoise instruments, and I believe I can release that as Sviz instruments, because Renoise can load those, but also so can a bunch of Linux stuff. And the way I use them as the individual bass instruments, but they're like Rickenbacker instrument A through F, and those are velocity layers. I'm using them for composition, so I would explicitly load up only the velocity layer that I find useful. Somebody else might want to build on that and maybe build in Golem and get their particular sound out of it, or whatever it is that they choose to do with that, and then release their own velocity-laden instrument. I'm basically doing it for compositional purposes, so the instrument I'll be releasing will be choose your velocity layer by the instrument number, and then use that. That's kind of the idea with the Airwindows sound library that I'm looking to put together. There's going to be a lot coming out from that. As usual, I have some interesting ideas about ways you can do that, and I'm going to be all over that when I'm up in Canada, because that's where I'll be using that most. The track that you've been listening to was assembled up in Canada. I just kind of getting a final mix on it. I kind of need my real monitors and things. And the composition is entirely done in renoise using those sample instruments. Even if it sounds kind of like a strange band doing wild stuff, this is all entirely sampled and artificial. And there's fun to be had there. So I'm kind of looking forward to digging into some of these things. I think that there's a lot of possibilities, and it's kind of exciting. I hope you like LilAmp. LilAmp is, of course, what I'm doing today. And I will talk to you later. Bye-bye.